Thank you for joining the Soul Sisters Cafe.
Hey, Tracey Gritz here, and today I'm lobbing the ball into your court over there, Jordan, because I know she's got some political things to chat about today.
Yes, I do. And I actually felt a little trepidatious. I was trepidatious about, I thought to myself, are we doing politics on the podcast? Because here I am inspired to talk about something. And are we going to go there? I don't know. And because I felt like there was a risk. There's a risk to turning people off who may not share my point of view, to what is that called? Alienating a part of the audience, and risking connection.
Yes.
Risking people, the audience turning away and rejecting me and rejecting us and rejecting the podcast. Mm-hmm. But I feel so inspired to talk about this because I haven't heard much in the conversation, and I'll describe what's going on in our this American political landscape in a few minutes.
I want to also speak to when you texted me on this topic.
Mm-hmm. Could you tell how I was like,
yep, I'm treading lightly.
Yes.
Treading lightly. And I thought, so the first thing I thought was, of course, any topic is open. Like, of course, any topic is open. And then I thought, that has been the old pleaser Tracey, who's wanted to be, of course, whatever you want to say. So then I was like, okay, so just how often the opportunities for our own realization and for our own growth come in so many different forms. And it was an opportunity for me to say, okay, thank you, Jordan, in my own mind for doing that, because maybe there will be a topic that I will feel uncomfortable with. And it is part of my own self then to be truthful about that. So I really appreciated the trepidation and the kindness in how you came across in your text to me. So one, I wanted to share that with you and with our friends. Go ahead.
Before you go on, so that's interesting because when I hear you say, any topic is fine, all I think is, oh, look, Tracey's open for everything, and isn't she awesome? And look at me being trepidatious, but then only in your own skin, like, whether you're being inauthentic, whether you're people-pleasing, which I would have I didn't really have any idea with your words. I was just like, oh, look at her being so cool. Any topic is awesome. But there's a line, maybe.
There might be.
For yourself.
And and to try to, at this point in time in my life, to try to avail myself to my truth. Mm-hmm. Because I've covered it up for so many years. It's so quiet. So quiet when I'm being a people pleaser, or is that really okay? Kind of stealth? Or am I people pleasing? Yeah, that's the right word. Stealth. Yes.
Yeah. And this is it's interesting, right? So for me, this opportunity, because I feel so inspired to talk about this, is the same thing, an opportunity for me to speak my truth.
And that's the second point of this, which is growth and fear. Mm-hmm. So fear, which is what will people think of us? Are they going to turn away from us? All those things, which are us separating ourselves from the truth of knowing that we are an aspect of the divine, that we are always in the light. And that when you come from the place, which I know you're always going to come from, which is a place of love, which is a place from you owning your own, not having it be a platform that when we are in our own truth, and we're not using it as a platform to shame others or try to convince others.
Right.
That which you always, and we are, as to the best, greatest of our ability, going to be playing from that place, always as soul sisters. And so the idea that of the fear doesn't remind us, oh, but I'm always going to do this from my heart.
No.
Anything done from love, within love, is going to create
more love.
More love.
And it's that crafty fear whose the action of fear is to create more fear, that says, oh no, don't talk about that topic because you might be divisive. People might turn away. You might shrink your audience. And it's very crafty because it sounds like it's helping me and protecting me, but it is creating more, fear. And so I can watch that happen, especially having this conversation, which I wasn't expecting to have. The pre-conversation. The precast.
Right. So all of that,
you
go girl. Go ahead.
Okay. So what's happening in the American political system right now is we have a president who, in my opinion, is is President Trump, one of the most divisive presidents that we've had. And I saw that in the campaign leading up to his election. And now we just had the Kavanaugh Supreme Court hearings to, dagnammit, I'm forgetting the word, to confirm him or not, and to have the Senate approve him or not. And there were allegations of sexual misconduct, and we went through that, and he was ultimately confirmed. And during those proceedings, we saw a very divided Senate, the Judiciary Committee, Republicans versus Democrats. And we saw Kavanaugh himself do the most partisan speech in the final day of his hearings. What he said, and he said, I wrote it. No one else has looked at it. And called out the liberal conspiracy against him, et cetera, et cetera. So very incredibly divisive. And what I found so I was watching so much contempt, the Republicans for the Democrats toward the Republicans, Kavanaugh toward the Democrats, the people against the woman with the allegation, people against Kavanaugh who was accused, so much contempt. And I can remember during the period leading up to President Trump's election, watching news coverage, and I would hear him at rallies, and I would have so much contempt for him and what he was saying, and the tapes, recordings of what he said in his own words. No spin, exactly what he said in his own words. And people in the room, I would be in a couple other situations, and there would be people in those various rooms who agreed with me, and I could just feel the contempt. We were very much agreed in our contempt of this man and what he was saying. And so so I noticed that. I noticed that was kind of unbridled contempt and disdain on my part. And I was lifting myself above him and anyone who supported him and just looking down on that point of view. And I can see how those people who supported him were doing that toward people who didn't support him as well. And so it was just in full force in the last couple weeks during these Kavanaugh hearings. And so now that we've been on a particular deep dive and looking at the concept and working with the concept, not just looking at it, but working to live the concept that everyone is in the light. As these things were going down and I'm watching this news coverage and I would feel that contempt come up again. And I'm like, oh, whoa, there I am. I'm wanting to scoot them out of the light. I am pushing them out of the light and not seeing them as equal and as in the light as the people who share my point of view. I felt I saw all the factions and all the sides doing a similar thing, pushing people, seeing people as outside of the light. And I saw shaming going on and a lot of righteousness in the way they were treating and seeing the side that was opposite them. And all the factions are doing this. All the sides are doing this.
Right. Totally.
And I'm like, oh, and I could feel, so I could feel the contempt in myself and I could feel the disdain. And I was like, look at me wanting to keep them outside of the light. So my very first step during all of this, and for the most part, we're observers. We're observers to this. It's going down. The senators are going to are going to vote how they're going to vote, and think it's not in my hands specifically. What I can do is I can see them in the light, remind myself that everything is created by the source, and therefore everything is the light of the source falls on everything, no matter whatever reason I want to give for why they should fall outside of the light. So it became a signal for me. It became a signal to remember that and to see everyone as in the light. And I thought, it's not the most beautiful thing to see people treating others as if they're outside of the light, regardless of your affiliation. And I just saw people, separating from other people, separating from the other sides.
Yes.
Judging,
so much judgment. So much judgment. I can't believe, they do this and they do this and they do this, and they're so, it's so funny because they're doing to them what the other party is doing. It's equal.
Yes.
It's equal. It's the same exact feeling.
Yes. And I was very clear, if you just take the parties and you swap all the players and you just swap the affiliation, it would probably look exactly the same. Same accusations, exact same contempt for the other side.
Yeah. It's
and
crazy.
Exact same division.
Same thing. Yes.
And still seeing other people outside of the light, which is becoming more untenable for me. It's becoming less okay for me to do. And I know I've been through logically that doesn't fly with me logically. So now I'm walking the path of, as I see things in my day-to-day life, can I feel when I am pushing people outside of the light? And then can I remember and bring them in? So if I go back to President Trump's campaign, I was sending so much contempt across the field, across the invisible field between me and him. And I was joining with other people who might be of the same mind in sending that contempt. And what I want to interject is that someone had the courage to share in a group that was talking about this actual, the post Kavanaugh hearing, just this Wednesday, just 2 days ago. And someone that was there said that the Dalai Lama said that, where do most of our problems stem from? They stem from, and I had already been using this contempt word because that just really describes it. He said the Dalai Lama said most of our problems stem from contempt for others. And so what is the opposite of contempt? Kindness, warm-heartedness. And I would put that under the umbrella of love. And so what I've been doing is reminding myself that President Trump, Kavanaugh, Blasey Ford, Republican senators, Democratic senators, everyone in the Me Too movement, every conservative, everyone on the planet has sovereignty, has the right to believe what they believe. They're all in the light. No one is less than me. No one is higher than me. We're all divinely equal. And so I'm sending love through the invisible field to Kavanaugh, to Blasey Ford, to President Trump, to the Republican senators, to the Democratic senators. That's where I'm starting. So in my skin, like, what can I do? I went from actively sending disdain, hostility, anger, superiority, contempt toward people just 2 years ago, to now working on actively sending love, kindness, warm-heartedness, acceptance to others. So that's a change. So I know at least there's a little bit less contempt here in my skin. And I started to imagine how would it be, and we're going to change this, one contemptuous thought that turns to warm-heartedness, I think, at a time. And imagine if those Senate chambers were filled, if every person in that room felt warm-hearted and kind-hearted toward all the other people in that room.
So a couple things. First is Jordan many, 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 many years ago said to me, Tracey, have you ever noticed, I don't know how you said it, but that when I say, like, let's say if I look at my kids and I tell them I love them, the person who gets the feeling is me. When we say to somebody, if you look at a baby or your husband or your wife or your significant other or your kidlet or whoever, and you have this feeling of love, and so you share with them, oh my gosh, I love you so much. The person that's actually feeling it, it's an energetic feeling that we have in our own body. And then that other person is a recipient of that energy too, but not at the power or magnitude that we have.
Yeah, the way that I say it is, who gets to feel it? Who gets to feel it? When you love someone, who feels the love?
Who feels the love?
The lover, the sender of the love gets to feel that love.
And the same thing with contempt.
Oh, yeah.
So the same thing with contempt. So when we are feeling contempt, when we're feeling judgy on somebody, when we're feeling these feelings, they are the recipient energetically, of course, of that energy, because we are all energy. Everything is of energy. But we are the ones experiencing that feeling. That vibration, that experience is flowing through our body. And I think that's super significant, because now when you can shift it and you can see these are all children, everybody, all are of the light. So all are aspects of the divine, all are children of God, however you want to roll with it. When they came in to this planet as that little adorable little pinch their cheeks little babala,
right? Yes,
that we did not know was going to be a Donald Trump or whatever. The same love that we would have for that little tiny person, that is the light that they possess still today. Is every human being, is every living, as everything does. Everything is of the light. So,
which, as we said, and I said in an earlier podcast, was hard enough for me to truly accept that what I came in at as a baby, or as your son came in as a baby, it wasn't until about 50 years later that I took a long detour and forgot that about myself, and then received and accepted that about myself again. So now I have the ability to extend that to someone else.
Yeah.
That I formerly had contempt for.
Yes. So now all these feelings that used to be contempt for these people doing these people doing these things, now you can see them for the truth of who they are. We may not, and we can talk about that later, but the behavior is one thing, whether we like or dislike a behavior, but the truth of who they are is who you are. So I want to make it really clear so that our friends can understand who you are sending love to is the truth of who they are. Mm-hmm. It's not the Democrat or the Republican or the president or the non-president. It's not the title. It is the aspect of the divine that they actually are, the aspect of the creator that they actually are. Everybody is.
The truth of who they are.
The truth of who they truly are. That everybody is, that you are too. That's who you can see them as, who you're holding them in that light. You're holding the truth of who they are in that light. So anyway.
Yes.
And now you get to feel that. Now you're the recipient.
Yeah, that is such a great point. That is such a great point, because we, I guess there's someone who says that hatred or vengeance, or hatred is like drinking the vial of poison and thinking that you're hurting someone else.
Yes. Right.
And that's it. It's because we, President Trump doesn't feel any of my contempt at all. I mean, in the quantum field, yes. But, right, it's like he's wherever he is, and here I am in my state. He's probably not even in my state, and doesn't know that Jordan Blaquera is being contemptuous of him. Right. But I know, so I got me some poison going through my body, and I'm noticing the poison, and I don't like where that goes or where that leads. And I think contempt is only made possible when we forget that we're all in the light, and we forget the brotherhood and the sisterhood of humanity. And that's when contempt, because in some way, I believe it's like we're lowering other people, or we're disconnecting ourselves from those people because we forgot the truth that we are all connected. So I've been thinking about politics. It's not something that I've really been overly educated or engaged in. And I feel that I've gone to, and I'm curious about it. I'm curious about issues like hunger and education and prison reform and crime and love and what happens. How does life on this planet? I mean, we're asking about how does life on this planet change when we come from love? We're asking just how do we have conversations with friends? Right? How do I have conversations with people that I formerly commiserated with and complained with and sent contempt across the airwaves with toward whatever our target was, whether it was a presidential candidate or a president or whoever in the news or whoever. We're trying to figure out just between us, when we go to dinner with a group of people, how do we participate in the conversation if we're so changed, if we're seeing things so differently? So how does that also have ramifications for poverty, for education, for these much bigger kinds of large group collectives? And what I feel like with this, I was pleased, I would say, with how I witnessed this most recent happenings in our political landscape, because I did bring the light. I did bring my love. I noticed my contempt, and I chose something different. And I feel like I went to the foundation in a way that is, because a lot of people will say, what do we do now? How do we do? How do we change? And what do we do? And I guess this is this age-old thing of, first of all, let's start being different. Let's be light-filled. Let's be warm-hearted, kind-hearted people. Let's remember our connection. Let's remember that we're all made of the same stuff, that we're all in the light. And that, I can see how that brings civility back, how that brings the ability to truly listen back, how that brings new wisdom and therefore new ideas. I mean, it's amazing that they got anything done with how much contempt was running around. And we have procedures and rules in place that allow things to get done even with contempt. But what else, and at what higher level could things be achieved if there were more and more and more people choosing to come from love, choosing to be kind-hearted? And I was like, compared to 2 years ago, the amount of contempt I had for what I was witnessing drastically reduced. I could not stay in a righteous stance. I couldn't do it anymore because it didn't make any sense, and it didn't jive with what I know the truth to be. And so I walked my talk, I walked my spiritual rhetoric of seeing my connection and to all of the players that were in front of me. And so that was a way that I walked forward.
Beautiful navigation.
With that.
So lovely. And just imagine, well, okay, so two things. One is, first of all, right, you get to experience. Now, what is the feeling that you're experiencing? Unity, harmony.
Unity, lovely.
And harmony,
yes.
that you're experiencing. Mm-hmm. And again, I want to make it really clear that because that we're looking at the person, the truth of who they are versus the action. And I know people can get really tripped up in that space. We can disagree, we have every right to disagree. We can disagree without being judgmental. It's actually completely possible. I can disagree with, I can think it's a horrible action to the people who have been part of the Me Too, that have been shamed, that have been fondled, that have been all those things. I don't have to agree. I do not. I think what has happened to those women throughout their lives, and they've covered it up because, of course, they were so worried. So the action that was done to them is a wrong action. It's for me.
Right. You're not condoning that action.
Right. And I can still see the person for the truth of who they are, and I think that's important because we can have our opinions about things. We can disagree with things. We can still hold that person in seeing them as the truth of who they are, seeing them in the light, seeing them as an aspect of the divine, seeing them as a child of God. All of those things, they actually can happen in the exact same time. So for those of you out there who are like, oh my God, but this person did such a horrible thing, we're never saying the action is okay. Ever. And that is all for us to decide. But we are saying, what Jordan is saying so beautifully is that she can see the truth of who they are and witness them as they are, the truth of that they are part of the light.
Their divinity.
Their divinity, exactly. And that touches her heart first, and now she's seeing everything in unity. And now there's a human being walking the face of this planet seeing unity. When they're seeing unity in a place where there's so much division.
Right.
So that's how it changes. And then if there's more to be done, if something calls to you politically or something, it calls to us as for us, then you step in that direction. But right now, I think step one, ground zero is the unity.
Ground zero.
Is the
connecting
love
with my heart.
Yes.
And connecting with my truth. Which is that we are all connected and we all come from the same creator and the same source. Mm-hmm. And we all have sovereignty. Yeah. We all are allowed to have our own views. And where my mind goes is, okay, fine, we can disagree and disagree lovingly and respectfully, but then how do we make a law? How do we make a this? How do we make a that? Yeah. How do we legislate? And so that's a bit, for me, that's cart before the horse, because the next thing for me to do, going back about 2 weeks, was to notice my contempt. Contempt came up and disdain and is to notice that and then to return myself to love, return my heart to love and to see unity. That was my next step. And then it came time I realized, oh my gosh, I want to discuss this on the podcast. So that's my next step. And before that, then I was at this gathering and someone raised this as a topic. And my next step was to share my point of view, which was slightly different from everyone else in the room and felt like a risk, but it was my truth. And that is part of my next step, is to tell my truth and to be willing to, and just to notice, oh, they might reject me. And then that would mean that I'm less than, or I'm inferior, or I should have kept my mouth shut, or I'm not that worthy. And then I can question all of that and remember, no, we're all divinely equal. We're divinely worthy. And then I share what I say, which several people were positive about what I had shared. And so my next step is saying these things, Yeah. and then my mind wants to race ahead and say, but then how do we change poverty? Or how do we change sexual predators? Or how do we change, you know, the victimization of women? Or how do we change all these big things? Or how do we change the Supreme Court and the divisiveness and the partisanship of our political system? And I just kind of have to breathe. I decide to breathe, and I just go, imagine that huge government room chambers where they were having those hearings, and imagine a world where everyone has their point of view and is loving their kindred, you know, and is feeling, knows the unity, is not lying to themselves that we are not all connected and one. And I find myself saying a lot, I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know, but I know what my work was in the last 2 weeks, which I just outlined. I know there's that. And so I just take the next step and the next step and the next step. And then I'll see where it goes. So I'm just taking one stair on the staircase at a time, and seeing where it goes, and just being really curious about what could happen. I mean, what would happen 2 years ago if everyone who felt contempt for the other person, because people felt contempt for the Democratic candidate, Hillary Clinton, and there was contempt all around. There was a lot of contempt. There was a big contempt party going on. And so how would it be different? So we will see, right? We're going to see how this shifts as we move forward. And then I think each one of us has an individual curriculum. We'll have the next thing. Yeah. Talk to this person, go to this meeting, say this thing, return to your heart, meditate, drink water, vote, you know, the next thing. Love.
Yes. I love that you outlined just they seem like we're not doing anything per se, but in a way I feel like I'm doing so much by holding everybody in their worth. Doesn't matter, and politics are a delicious and beautiful way for us to practice.
Yes,
this,
ma'am.
Because if we can hold anybody in their worth, no matter what they do, knowing that we are all children of God, all part of the Creator, we are all one, we are all brothers and sisters. Again, so if we can do that for the things that turn our stomach, we can do that for ourselves. Those two, we can't give what we don't have, and that's a whole other topic. But
yeah, and the more we do, I find that it tends to work. The more I do it for myself, then the more I can do it for other people.
Yeah.
I was going to share that a shift that I noticed in myself, even though I haven't had the opportunity to be in the same room with these family members. I have a family member who is of a different political association than mine, and I felt disdain when that topic comes up, and contempt when that topic comes up, and I just, in my mind, I just blow it off. And I find myself now curious, why does he believe that? What is it about that is, and I feel more willing and able and interested and curious to just understand, to listen, to understand. Whereas before I would just blow off. And I think that's something a lot of us are habituated to do, is to just blow off the other side. And so I notice, there's a shift. That's different. You know how we just create a ripple that just slowly changes.
Right. Isn't that fantastic? It's like transfer of knowledge. It's like, okay, so I'm into doing this, okay, so at first it's like contempt, and then it might be like, okay, I'm going to just go to neutral. I'm not too sure what to do. I know for me that was a space. Right. That was a stage. It was first I was like, what the hell, and then it was like, okay, I know that's not helpful for us as a planet. My judgment.
Right.
So I'll go neutral. So I'm just going to try to not watch any of it. Try to be neutral, And then I realized, okay, now I got that. Now I'm going to move to seeing the truth of who they are and being able to love and not being able to understanding who they are and loving them, loving the truth of who they are, not maybe being happy with the decisions or whatever. And then I think then it is so cool that now, like all these things, as you would say, follow the breadcrumbs, they're the next stepping stone. Is okay, so now it is completely possible to talk to somebody on the other side,
right,
with genuine interest,
right,
well, at the beginning, underneath that genuine interest, what you're doing is you're seeing the truth of who they are. You know who they are. They are an aspect of divine inform. They are a child of God. They are part of the Creator, whichever way you want to look at it. You know that before they even open their mouth, and that's the way you are looking at them. So then when they talk, it's information.
Yes.
And
you can listen.
Yes.
You can hear. And I wanted to say this at the beginning, and I didn't, that even if politics is not your jam, that anyone where there is a challenger, an opponent, someone on the other side, and I'm even thinking about there was something with you and your second son who, and you're like, oh, he totally sees it this way. And he's really trying to help me, even though it was something you were not going to consider at all, his suggestion.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
But you could even kind of compliment him or say, thank you for being so concerned. I see what you're saying. I see where you're coming from. And so parent, children,
that is so true.
Relatives, relationships, coworkers, bosses. There's so many ways that this process can play out, because I think in a lot of businesses and jobs, there's a lot of contempt and disdain for people around you that you might work with, or people in your family. And so wherever we're in relationship with people, there are going to be challenges like this, and everything we just discussed applies. And I know that you specifically had this with one of your sons. And you probably have it, you've had it with your husband.
Well, that was such a turning point. That was one of those things like, oh my God, I can't believe he said this. And I was like, so neutral on it. Like, oh yeah, that's interesting. Totally see that. And I don't agree with it. And I'm choosing to go this way. No, not pissed, not judging, just factual.
Right.
Same thing with the politics.
Not contempting against him.
When they're sitting at that table, you can be like, don't agree with that. Doesn't float my boat. Not my jam. Right. Certainly see who they are. Love them for being a part of the light.
Yeah.
For one of the things, and I said this so many times that I loved of Matt Kahn's that he says is everybody is a work of art in the museum, and is a divine work of art in the museum of life.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, oh, look at that, is a divine work of art. Might not be my flavor of art.
Sure.
Do you like Picasso? Do you not like whatever? But that might not be my flavor of art.
Yep.
To somebody else it is. And it's all...
And they have a right to be in the museum.
They are right. They are part of the fantastic fabric of the museum. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, delicious. Love it. I think it's a great topic.
And it feels... and I feel this is part of my growth edge, to be willing to have this conversation and to not listen to the fear, to have it create more fear, and to express this point of view. And one of the things I said to myself when I was considering whether to go through with this podcast and even pose it to you was how is the light going to spread? How are we going to be more warm-hearted and more kind-hearted and more loving? How are we going to reach across the aisle if people are not willing to share there's nothing wrong with this point of view. This is a fantastic point of view. It's about more love and light and less contempt and less division and disdain and more unity and harmony. And I'm trying to talk myself out of it. I'm trying to talk myself out of that. And I realized...
Isn't that crazy? There's fear.
Part of it is going to be people with this choice that you have right now, Jordan, to say yes or to not say yes. To open your heart and to trust and to have faith and to speak your truth. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be talking out my butt, like who am I to be talking about politics? I'm not this crazy educated PhD Harvard trained person. And I said, I know about love. I know about contempt. I know about shifting from disdain and contempt to love and unity and harmony. I'm doing it in my own skin. And so
you are completely
I'm going to do it.
Yeah, totally. Right. You're totally worth that. Worthy of that. Are we going to be talking about like how to do open heart surgery? No.
Right.
I tell you.
Or how to pass a new law or,
No, but we are going to talk to what's behind all that.
Yeah.
How can we bring the truth, bring the love to this planet, to our own lives? How do we actually integrate it in our own lives? How do we do that? And it's sometimes messy, sometimes tricky, sometimes complicated, sometimes not so pretty, but always moving toward the light is so beautiful.
Yes. And I cannot deny that there is so much less contempt in my cells than there was 2 years ago. And if the planet doesn't need less contempt, I don't know what it, needs. Less contempt, more love. So amen to us for doing that. Amen. And to anyone out there who is trepidatious about sharing your own truth, maybe that's fear creating more fear. Mm-hmm. And I did find just really being centered, I had a lot of conversation going on with myself about that, but to really question what my mind was kicking up at me so that I could take those steps up the stairs and say yes to what my next thing was. So I hope that the listeners and the viewers will be willing to and have courage and trust taking your next steps and saying yes.
Amen. And so thank you, Jordan, so much for the steps that you took, for walking us through from contempt to this. I think was fantastic as well, because it was too big of a leap to go from contempt to this. Mm-hmm. You had to do the bait. We have to take the steps and integrate. Okay. Oh, now that's interesting. Okay. Now you integrate, and next thing you know, you're going to be sitting at the family table working on how do I navigate this with somebody who I completely have a different opinion with.
Right.
And integrating that, and then that will be your new normal. So as you integrated it, you help all of us to witness it as well as to integrate it too. So thank you so much. Beautiful.
Thank you for that. And you're welcome.
Amen.
All right. I'm complete.
Me too.
Wonderful. We'll see y'all on the next podcast.
Bye.